guys, welcome back to our channel. If you'd like to know how I made this amazing French crust bread without overnight rising, without kneading, without a mixer, without any weighing scale, in just 1 hour 30 minutes, then keep watching. Right, so I made this amazing French crust bread during the lockdown, and a lot of people wanted to know the recipe because I told them this bread was really forgiving. I had never made bread prior to making this bread, and it was a success. Anybody can make this bread, and I'll show you how to. Basically, French crust bread is a slack dough bread. You don't need to knead it. It's quick and easy. Most people are nervous about making bread because they feel like it takes ages. So you have to keep it overnight, you have to knead it for several minutes and your arms will be aching. But no, not French crust bread. It is super easy to make, and the outside of the bread is crusty. That's why it's called French crust bread, get it? So what makes the bread crusty is basically baking it in a Dutch oven. What is a Dutch oven, you might ask? Yes, I was like, what the hell is a Dutch oven when I first heard that? But basically, a Dutch oven is simply baking your bread in a pot. So a heavy bottom pot. It could be a non-stick pot, whatever non-stick pot you've got, but I'm gonna be using a cast iron pot. And basically the cast iron, the pot, you bake your bread in the pot and in the oven. The pot holds the steam inside and creates the crust on the outside of the bread, while the inside is just like a normal bread. Well, not really like a normal bread. French crust bread doesn't have as much air pockets as a normal bread that you would keep for 8 hours to rise. So it is soft, but not as fluffy as a normal bread, but it's a lovely sourdough bread. Okay, so let's get right into it. I'll show you how to do a simple, really simple recipe, a few ingredients. For this bread, all you need is your bowl and your spatula. You don't need a mixer, like I said before. So into your bowl, you would add 1 cup of lukewarm water. Okay. So as I said, for this bread, all you need is a bowl and a spatula. You don't need a mixer. So right into a bowl, you will put 2¼ teaspoon of yeast, or the equivalent is 7 grams, but I don't like to measure, I just like to scoop. It's fast rising yeast, because I'll explain why I use fast rising yeast in a moment. Then in goes 1 cup of lukewarm water. It has to be lukewarm water. It cannot be hot water, and it cannot be cold water. If it's too hot, it will kill the yeast, and if it's too cold, the yeast is not going to activate. So I'm just going to leave that to activate for 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, you can see the yeast has got a lot of bubbles on it. That shows you that your yeast is good. If your yeast doesn't have these bubbles, that means it's either expired or your water was too hot. Your dough is not gonna rise. A teaspoon of salt goes in there, and then I'll put my flour. I'm using 2½ cups of flour, and you might need ½ cup for dusting. Okay, but in here I'll put 2½ cups. I use the same cup that I used to measure the water, to measure the flour. You don't need to sieve it, nothing. Just pour it all in there. I'm using all-purpose flour, but you can use bread flour if you have that, or half and half flour. That's how. Then you just mix this in, okay? No right or wrong way to mix it. Don't be scared if you have a loose dough. That is what this recipe is about. The dough is really, really loose. So in 30 seconds, you can see it has combined together. Okay, so we can see the dough just come together. You don't need to knead it or anything. 30 seconds after I started mixing it, it's all together now. All I need to do is cover it up and leave it for 30 minutes, okay, to rise. Why I'm doing 30 minutes is because I use fast rising yeast. If you use normal yeast, you have to keep it for 1 hour to rise, okay? But fast rising yeast works a lot faster. So you just need to cover it with a tea towel, okay? You can put some dusting flour so it doesn't stick to the bowl, but it really doesn't matter because you can get it out anyway. So for now, I just cover it with a tea towel and I'll leave it in a warm place, not really, just like inside a cupboard or something. One thing I forgot to mention is that if you want this bread to be ready in 1 hour 30 minutes, you need to put your oven on now. So that 30 minutes, well, your the dough will be rising in a separate place. I'll put the oven on and I'll put my Dutch oven, which is my pot basically, into the oven to get it hot, okay? So put your oven at the maximum heat that you have. Most people is 460 degrees Fahrenheit. Mine is 240 degrees Celsius. Or if you have gas mark, I think gas mark is gas mark 6 or something like that. Anyway, it's up to you. Just put it at the highest temperature for that 30 minutes. That way, once my dough is risen, I'm ready to bake. And that means I'll get my bread as quick as possible. It's Saturday morning, so I'm just going to go for a walk for that 30 minutes. So I'll burn some calories, and so that when I'm enjoying this delicious bread, I won't feel guilty at all. Anyway, so I'll put this away now for 30 minutes and I'll show you what it looks like when I get back. So I'm back from my walk and I have just got 30 minutes later. Look at my dough. Look at that. It has really risen. It's doubled in size. Obviously it would do that because my yeast was good to start with. And now you're gonna need the remaining half a cup of flour for dusting. So all I need to do now, I'm not kneading this dough. Remember, I said it was an easy dough. Is to get it out of the bowl and just give it a shape. Just shape it so that we have a nice shape. It is, remember, it is a very, very loose dough. So you could oil the bowl before you put the dough inside, okay? Or you could put some flour in so that way it doesn't stick too much. So now all I need to do is just shape in this dough. This flour is not to make my dough any harder because we like it loose and slack the way it is, but just to make sure it's not sticking, we need enough flour on the surface, okay? So what I'm doing now is just trying to shape it. So I'm taking from the outside and putting it inside, like that, from outside to inside. I hope you can see what I'm doing. So I just need to get a nice rounded dough, okay? So that's what I have. That is looking good. That's all I need. I didn't use all the flour. I just used only about half. That's a quarter cup, but that's okay. You might need more. And you just make sure you form a nice rounded shape. Then I'll get my pot. Remember, I put my Dutch oven, which is my pot, in the oven, and it's been there for 30 minutes as well. So I'll get it out now. To be very hot, so you have to be very careful. And then I'll put this right inside. You can put the parchment paper in your Dutch oven before putting your dough inside, but I don't bother. It's a non-stick pot anyway, and it is a heavy bottom pot, so it's not going to burn or stick to the bottom. So what I need to do is get my pot, then I will flip this dough. This rough part will be at the bottom and the smooth bottom will be at the top. I'll show you. My my pot is out from oven. Is very, very hot because it's been there for 30 minutes. So you need to do this really quickly. Take the lid out. Look at that smoke. Okay. Then it's already formed. So you have to gently put the rough side at the bottom of the pot like that. So the smooth side will be at the top. Don't worry about this flour. And then you cover the pot. Then you cover the pot. If your pot is like mine, it's got a hole there. We don't want that hole. Use something like a paper or a little bit of tissue to cover that hole on the lid because we want the steam trapped Remember, it's the steam that gives it the crust. So now, I'll take this to the oven for 45 minutes. We'll reduce the oven to gas mark 4 or 180, I think, degrees Celsius. We'll bake it for 30 minutes with the lid on, and then we'll take off the lid and bake it for another 15 minutes. Remember that 30 minutes with the lid on is very important because it traps the heat, the steam, and the moisture is what gives it the crusty top, okay? Wait, I'll see you for 5 minutes. So it's been 30 minutes. I've taken off the lid in the oven and I'll leave it for another 15 minutes to just brown. Oh, 45 minutes later, and ta-da! Look at this bad boy. It is so good. It's exactly looking like what I wanted, what I expect. It's perfect. It is really perfect. So I'll just get it out now and probably let it cool before I cut it because it's really hot, right? So that is gorgeous. Look at that. It just came right out. Remember, I didn't butter my pot, but it's a non-stick pot, so look at it. Okay, so it is so amazing. Look at it. Oh goodness, I can't wait. This bread is perfect for serving as a starter. Okay, if you're expecting guests, brilliant. 1 hour 30 minutes is ready. You can serve it with soup, you can have it for breakfast, you can have it for lunch, jam, butter, peanut butter, whatever, cheese, whatever your poison is, whatever you love, just use it. It's perfect. Look at this. Just gonna cut into the bread now. Can you hear that sound? That is what we want. It's not a normal bread. It has to have that crunch all over the outside. Oh, look at that. Look at, see, it's got a lot of air pockets, even more than I thought. Okay, so the inside is nice and fluffy. Got that lovely soft inside and air pockets, but the outside is crunchy. Perfect. As you can see, it's super easy. You can do it in 1 hour 30 minutes on a Saturday morning. What better way to wake your family than to the smell of freshly baked homemade bread? You can't go wrong with it. As I said in the beginning, it's super forgiving. This recipe will feed my family of 6, but you can double the recipe just by multiplying everything. I'll put all the ingredients in the description bar below, so go check it out. Make sure you subscribe while you're there, while you're here. And that is one way to support us and show us some love and encourage us. So yeah, click the subscribe button right now. Yeah, do that. Until next time, keep living, loving, and laughing. Bye. When I was in Nigeria, we didn't have an oven, but I love to bake. So I'll give a tip here for people that don't have ovens. They can still make this bread, and you can make cake, you can make other pastries like as if you had an oven. Okay, so what you just need to do is have 2 pots, not this size. Basically, this is just for demonstration. You need a big pot, so pretend that this is my big pot. Okay, you put sand, any sand, brown sand, white sand, beach sand in the big pot. Then you put whatever you're baking in the small pots. So if I was baking cake, for instance, I'll put the cake in the small pot or in my cake pan. Then I'll put it on the sand in the big pots and cover this. You don't have to cover the cake, obviously. You just cover the big pot. Make sure it's properly sealed because the big pot will serve as your oven. Okay? But if you want to bake this bread, you just put the bread in the small pots, which this is my Dutch oven. Cover it, put it in the big pots with the sand inside. The sand should be about 1/4 of the pot, okay? You place it inside the big pot properly. Obviously, the big pot, it will sit inside, not like this. And then you put the lid of the big pot on and make sure the lid is sealed. So you can use foil or something to seal the big pot. Then you put it on your gas cooker or your stove if you don't have a gas cooker. And just reduce the heat and it will work like an oven because the heat will be trapped in the big pot. Try it if you don't have an oven and you see it works really well, and you thank me later. Okay guys?